Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is your host, Mongo Slade, and today we're going to talk about Bloodsport 5, or more specifically, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 5, which is, I don't think I did a Bloodsport review yet. I've seen quite a few of these. I think I've seen two or three of them. I don't know if I did any reviews, though. I probably just kept, I think I did a review for the last time John Moxley was on the show. I think he fought Chris Dickinson. I'm not sure if I did one or not. Anyway, I'm doing one on this one because I caught the whole show this time. So, for those of you who don't know, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport is like Raw Underground. Raw Underground ripped off Josh Barnett's Bloodsport for sure. You can only win the matches by submission or knockout. There are no pinfalls. There's a lot of open hand strikes, but there's a lot of mat wrestling. None of the matches are too long. They all go about 7 minutes, 8 minutes, maybe. I think the main event probably went 10 or 12, but it's about 8 minutes. It's about eight matches. The show was like an hour and a half total, so you can sit down and watch this whole thing in one sitting. It's match after match after match. There are no angles. There's nothing like that. I've seen Bloodsport where there was crowds. I've seen Bloodsport where there was no crowds. Let me tell you, Bloodsport without crowds, it looks like you're watching something illegal. Like, real talk. It feels like you're not supposed to be watching this. Like, the ambiance of that shit, the environment is fantastic. It's dark. It's somewhat smoky. It's a little bit like Mortal Kombat. Like, it's got the probably one of the best environments. Like, I always say that Ring of Honor has a really fantastic style that fits the idea of no crowd. Bloodsport is right up there with it. The only problem with Bloodsport is they do tend to bring in people I don't know. And, but other than that, this was a very good product. Now, could you watch this every week on TV? Probably not. Because then you would have to gimmick it up with angles and all that type of stuff, right? But as a straight sports presentation, this is top notch, right up there with Ring of Honor. I think the Ring of Honor Pure Division and all the stuff that Ring of Honor does in the empty arenas, especially. Now, Bloodsport is good with crowds because you still hear the thunder and all that type of stuff, but it is particularly good without crowds because you get to hear the guys grunting and groaning and it's like, it sounds like a fight is going on in a warehouse, right? It sounds like two guys are fighting in a warehouse. That's what it sounds like, So, and that's what it looks like too. So it's a really fun product. Of course, it cannot be weekly, but once every couple of months, oh, perfect, flawless situation you got here. Josh Barnett really does good stuff, and Josh Barnett is a MMA fighter turned pro wrestler. He was, I didn't, to be quite honest, I didn't see him that much in either one. I know that he said one of his mentors is Antonio Inoki, and he sort of buys into Inokiism, which is the concept of mixed martial arts and pro wrestling. A lot of wrestling fans hate Inokiism because they got a lot of their Japanese wrestlers got their asses beat, like Yuji Nagata, and Shinsuke Nakamura. They got really, well, I think Nakamura won every fight he was in, but it took years off of his career because he had to fight real fights and do pro wrestling at the same time. Like, Inokiism really is a thing that people don't really care for, but it depends because some people really thought like, hey, it proves that the fighters were real fighters, which is what Inoki wanted. But at the same time, a lot of his guys got hurt. Some of them got hurt like really bad, like seriously injured. There was guys who was trying to get the hell out of Japan just to get away from Inoki. I wish I could have read, maybe while I'm talking about Inoki, I probably should have read Shinsuke Nakamura's passage on Antonio Inoki, because Inoki was one of his mentors as well, but he wasn't a fan of Inokiism. he was not a fan, and plus he said Antonio Inoki was kind of brutal. He was one of those old hardhead types of guys who didn't play none of that soft shit. And Japan's a very strange culture where you had a lot of the honor systems and stuff like that, man. Like, it could get real bad for you. But let's get into this show. The first fight was Calder Mccall versus Bad Dude Tito. I'd never seen either one of these guys before. Calder was the better wrestler. There was, I think, I forget, they went through their backgrounds, but I wasn't paying attention at this point in time. But I think Calder Mccall was actually an MMA fighter, or he has some MMA training, and Bad Dude Tito had some wrestling training, if I remember correctly. I enjoyed when Bad Dude Tito did the German suplex into the grounded pound, and then from there he went into a knee bar, which I thought was pretty cool. You had some pretty decent strikes by Calder. A lot of these are open hand strikes. They're not. Some of them are light. That's kind of one of the weaknesses of Bloodsport. Is sometimes the strikes are light, especially like the slaps to the face and stuff like that. They're not that. And the leg kicks. The leg kicks are almost always light because you can really fuck somebody's legs up with a leg kick. So they almost throw leg kicks light all the time. So the ground game is really the strength of Bloodsport. The stand-up is okay if they really lay it in, but not really. Anyway, Calder Mccall wins by submission after a running knee, and then into a rear naked choke. So he kind of did a running knee, and then while he was staggered, put him in a rear naked choke. Pretty cool. Not bad. It was pretty solid. The next match was Nolan Edward versus Calvin Tankman. Now, if you listen to my MLW reviews, Calvin Tankman is now in MLW. And he's undefeated in MLW. I think that he is 1-1 in Bloodsport. I'm not sure. I don't remember what his record is. But this is a lightweight versus heavyweight match with Nolan Edward being the lightweight. And Tankman pretty much beat him up on the feet. Like when they were standing up, he just pretty much beat him up. He's physically imposing. Wasn't too much he could do. And then Nolan Edward took him down with a double leg. And that gave him the advantage. So Tankman dropped Edwards following a leg capture. There was a flying knee into a guillotine by Nolan Edward, which was pretty cool. Like the guillotine spot was a pretty good hope spot. Like it really made me think that Tankman might not submit, but that he might get choked out. But the finish came with the Tankman driver, which is Calvin Tankman's finishing hold. He just hit him with it, and then he, climbed on top of him and started doing, the ground and pound, and the referee pulled Tankman off. Therefore, Tankman wins. This match was also pretty solid. Not much to write home about, but it makes sense that it showed that Tankman's a bit of a brawler. He's one of the guys who doesn't really have MMA training. So he's like a pro wrestler who, is just kind of a big, tough dude, which is pretty cool. So the third fight was Super Beast versus Kojak. Super Beast looks like the comic version of Bane. Now, when I say, Bane, people don't think the movie Dark Knight Returns or, no, what was it? Dark Knight Rises. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, if you've seen Bane in the comics, that's how Super Beast looks. He's like this big, he's got like Batista's body with like a Mr. Wrestling mask on. Stuff like reverse color, like blue and white. Kojak is dressed like a wild mountain man with like a bear suit or something like that. Now, Super Beast, they didn't go into his background. They did a lot of, we don't know who this guy is. They didn't know his height, his weight, nothing like that, which is a cool gimmick for a Kumite Mortal Kombat style tournament system. If you don't know everybody who shows up, it's basically that people show up and they fight. So, but Kojak is actually what they said he used to train for the Olympics or something like that. So like he had a real legitimate background when it comes to this stuff. And it shows because he really kind of dominated, especially on the ground where, he had this half Nelson that he transitioned into a gut-wrench suplex, which was pretty fucking cool. And Super Beast was basically just a brawler, that he did a lot of, body punches and trying to muscle him around. But anyway, the fight ended with a head and arm choke where, a referee stoppage. Referee saved Super Beast from tapping out or being seriously injured. So it was fine. This was a pretty fun match. It was enjoyable. It was the best match up to this point. Let's put it like that. So the next match was Alex Coughlin versus Royce Isaacs. Now, Royce Isaacs is from the NWA. I think he was one of the NWA tag team champions. He's, of course, not that anymore. But he was a wrestler in college. And then you had Alex Coughlin as a New Japan Young Lion. And they are very technically proficient in the New Japan dojo. And Alex Coughlin was, I don't know why he was picked, but I think that Josh Barnett has some connection to the New Japan dojo. I think he might be a trainer at the LA dojo. Anyway, because he's a college wrestler, Royce Isaacs had the advantage on the ground. But even though Coughlin was still able to counter. They was telling the story of Coughlin's armbar. He was trying to get this armbar. He tried numerous times to get this cross arm breaker on Royce Isaacs. And Royce Isaacs actually countered it one time into a Texas cloverleaf, which led Coughlin to crawl to the edge of the ring, and both of them dumped out. Now there is no rope breaks, obviously, because there are no ropes. So he escaped the Texas cloverleaf by just falling out of the ring. Then the finish came in from a north-south position, as when your chest is, or your chins are like, I was about to say your chins are touching, but that's basically sound like you're kissing. But like if you were asleep, like feet to head, okay, like head to foot, except for you'd be like chest to chest, and then it was like from there it was like in a dragon sleeper. So basically he won with a dragon sleeper. And this was the best match up to that point. This match was really good. It was really fun. I had never seen Alex Coughlin before. This is a perfect venue for a New Japan student. So after the match, Royce Isaacs offered a handshake, which Coughlin denied and shoved him and pushed him, didn't want anything to do with him. So then the next match, which was the only real angle on the show, the next match, Simon Grimm, a.k.a. Simon Gotch, versus Rocky Romero. And the moment I saw Simon Gotch, and every time I see Simon Gotch, I can't think of nothing but Enzo Amore talking about this man's titties. I cannot think of anything else. Every time I see Simon Gotch, no matter where I see him, all I think of is Enzo Amore talking about his titties, his saggy tits. Just fuck. Okay. I was shocked to see that this guy, like, this is something that I noticed on this show, that a lot of these guys, a lot of them are like 35 plus. Ever since they started talking about age on the internet, I kind of been paying a lot of attention to it, and they did the favor of actually showing us the ages of a lot of these performers. Like, a lot of these guys, especially in the top 3 matches, a lot of these guys like 35 plus. Some of these guys are almost 40. Some of them are 40. Like Simon Grimm is 38. Like, I had no idea. But I've seen Simon Grimm. Of course, he was in WWE. He's part of the Vaudevillains with Aiden English. And Rocky Romero is a mainstay in New Japan. He's also done some stuff at MLW. He's also done some stuff at Impact. So, these guys, these are journeymen. They've been around. So Rocky Romero was trained by Josh Barnett in the LA dojo in New Japan. And Simon, I was about to talk about Simon Gotch's titties. But this is another one of those heavyweight versus lightweight matches. This was the best match up to this point. Like, it kept getting progressively better. Rocky Romero tried to go from a front face lock and transition that into an octopus, but it didn't work. Like, it just would not work. I guess he couldn't get his legs over Grimm's body. There was one situation where they were tied up at the legs, where Grimm had him in a knee bar, and he countered it with a heel hook, which is, you grab the ankle and the toe, and, then Grimm kind of started hitting it with some forearms, and they got let go. So Rocky Romero was in this, utilized the cravat really well. The cravat is like a head vice. You see it in wrestling sometimes that people basically use it as a goddamn rest spot, but it hurts. Okay, trust me. Like, the cravat is not fun to be in. And anyway, it's Rocky Romero, had him pretty tight, and in one situation, Grimm actually slammed him to get out of it. But then in the second iteration of the cravat, Grimm tried to slam him, and Rocky rode through it, and then then he started landing some knee strikes. The finish came with Rocky Romero getting Simon Grimm in a cross arm breaker after he tried to slam him again while he was in the cravat. So this was pretty sweet. This was pretty fucking sweet. This match was good. This was good stuff. And I'm not a fan of either one of these guys. I'm not a fan of Rocky Romero. I'm not a fan of Simon Grimm. See, when you're in this type of environment, you don't need to have personality. You don't need to have charisma. You can just be a work rate guy. And you're not out there that long. So you're not about to do 15, 20 minutes of this kind of intense, style. It is, you can do a good 7 or 8 minutes and be great, be gravy. And that's basically what they did. I think they probably went a little bit longer than 7 or 8 minutes, but this rocked. This is pretty good. The next match was J.R. Kratos versus Chris Dickinson. J.R. Kratos had trained in MMA, and he actually trained Muay Thai, and he also trained with Josh Barnett. Dickinson is a mainstay in Bloodsport. He had been on every show. I had only seen the show where he wrestled Moxley. I know there was a Bloodsport show before this one. I didn't hear about it. I just had to start following Josh Barnett and all these guys on Twitter in order to keep up, because I don't really like the whole GCW system. I don't really like that stuff, but some people do. I'm not a fan of it. So I always miss Bloodsport because it's always mixed in like the big gay brunch and whatever Joey Janela and all them guys are doing. I have no interest in that stuff. Anyway, J.R. Kratos is big. He's big. He's a big dude. And Dickinson just could not move him. It looked like a guy was trying to wrestle with a Ninja Turtle. Like he trying to tackle Raphael or some shit. Like Kratos was just like a big dude. And it was hard getting, like, Dickinson had a problem getting his arms around him and stuff like that, getting him to move. And, it's a pretty good strategy. Kratos was very aggressive, especially with the strikes. But he was slower. Like, Dickinson was younger. I think he's like 33 or something like that. And Kratos was almost 40. So Dickinson, when they were standing up, Dickinson would just basically light him up. I think he hit him like 3 or 4 times, unresponded, in a standing up. He just couldn't really move Kratos around, and that was really where the weakness came in. And then he finally did started moving him. I think he suplexed him. Dickinson also tried a double leg takedown at one point and ended up getting powerbombed. It was a pretty ugly powerbomb too, and it was pretty vicious. The finish came with a rear naked choke for Dickinson, which was a counter. He was being lifted into the air. He was about to get thrown outside the ring, but he kind of sprawled around while he was in the air. He kind of slipped from J.R. Kratos' grip and put his, put him in a rear naked choke, and J.R. Kratos tapped out. So Dickinson couldn't really do that much with him physically, even though he tried. But he still won by submission. And this match was not as good as the other matches. This is probably the first dip in match quality, basically due to Kratos, just being a giant turtle and Dickinson not being able to do too much with him. But they showed some pretty interesting. At the end, they shook hands, which was a good code of honor type of thing. Also, I forgot to mention, I think J.R. Kratos is actually half of the NWA Tag Team Champions now, because I think it's him and Aaron Stevens are the NWA Tag Team Champions, and I think that's the case. I hope I'm not wrong. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. Anyway, the 7th match, Filthy Tom Lawler versus Jeff Cobb. Tom Lawler is a former UFC fighter. He wrestles currently for MLW. He just did the Filthy Island episode of Fusion, which was basically a Tom Lawler-centered episode. Jeff Cobb is, of course, better known from Ring of Honor and New Japan. I had no idea Jeff Cobb was almost 40 years old. Tom Lawler, he spent years in the UFC. I can understand why he's almost 40. I never even heard. That means Jeff Cobb was like 35 when I heard of him. Okay, which was in like Ring of Honor when he's like the Ring of Honor TV champion. That means I thought he was a young guy. It turns out that he's not. But I think he's an Olympian, right? He used to wrestled in the Olympics, so he had like a whole career, a whole life before he went into pro wrestling. It makes sense that he would be older. But of course, Cobb has a great look. He's a lot like Taz. I say that every time I see him, that Jeff Cobb reminds me so much of like Taz and Rhino mixed together. Like he has Rhino's body shape, but he kind of looks like, his stylistically, he's more like Taz. Like if Rhino had Taz's ability and not Rhino's ability, but still had Rhino's strength, that would be like Jeff Cobb. That was the only problem Taz had. He just didn't have the body. He was just very small. But Jeff Cobb was pretty cool. So anyway, this match was great. This was great shit. There was some really cool leg kicks in this match. This is the first match that really kind of utilized leg kicks significantly. And then Cobb ends up taking them down with a single leg takedown. There was a cradle in this match that was pretty sweet too. Where if you imagine like a perfect flex, how that the arms would lock the leg, that was pretty sweet. Like they was doing it for a submission. Cobb was using it as a submission hold, and he would like stretch the opposite leg and trying to get a submission, and Lawler managed to escape that. Lawler was really tenacious, especially with the guillotines and different submissions, and trying to get Jeff Cobb to tap out, to give him to give up. Ultimately, Jeff Cobb ended up winning after a trio of German suplexes into a seated full Nelson. Now, that doesn't sound like a badass finish, but it was great. It was a great fucking finish, because Tom Lawler sold the fuck out of it. This guy is so much, Cobb is bigger than Lawler, so it's a situation where you got this big Olympian who's got you by the stomach. He's boom, boom, boom. And then while you like waste it, he puts like his gigantic arms are like squeezing your head forward. And it's like, yeah, I can see why you would give up to that. I see why you would quit. And this match was fun. This match was fantastic. This was the best match up to this point. Like it progressively got better. So the main event, Jon Moxley versus Davey Boy Smith Jr. This match came about because Davey Boy Smith Jr. was undefeated in Bloodsport and challenged Jon Moxley to a fight. DBS, or Davey Boy Smith Jr., had trained under Josh Barnett. Moxley was more of a brawler, traditional pro wrestler, no amateur background to speak of. Davey Boy Smith Jr. did most of the work in this match. I'm talking, he basically was physically dominant on Moxley. He kind of threw him outside the ring at one point. Physically and in terms of technique, there was no competition. Davey Boy Smith was vastly superior. But Moxley's, they did a great job here of telling the story of Moxley just being the toughest motherfucker in the world. Like he doesn't quit. He keeps fighting. He's got grit. He's got character. He's got charisma. At one point, he's in an ankle lock, and he just says, "I don't care. Break my fucking ankle. I'm not quitting. Like I'm not quitting. Break it. I don't care." And it was like, wow. It was just like, it was nuts. It was nuts, man. He busted Moxley open with some downward elbows, which are illegal in the UFC. But of course, it's not UFC. But Moxley just fought back. It was these vicious headbutts. Like they were just headbutting each other like the Junkyard Dog, like boom, 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 boom. Moxley hit him with like a flurry of knee strikes, and was kneeling while he was kneeling, which is also illegal in the UFC. Can't knee a downed opponent, and but Moxley was kneeing him in the face, of course, which was pretty cool because it gave him an opportunity to do like Moxley fighting dirty, and with his traditional MMA rules, and he's kind of going around that. Just kind of plays into the character because he is a sort of dirty hero. Like I keep saying, like he's more of the John McClane from Die Hard type of character. He doesn't care about playing by the rules, and in this situation, there really is no rules, Nobody ever hits anybody with a chair or anything like that. So, There was a pretty cool spot where Davey Boy Smith Jr. Used a double wrist lock after a Northern Light suplex, which was pretty fucking cool too. The one comedy spot in the whole show was not really a comedy spot. The comedy spot was that John Moxley tried to put Davey Boy Smith on a sharpshooter. Like, that was fucking hilarious. Like, like that was fucking hilarious. And it's almost like a slap in the face. But he really tried to put this guy in the sharpshooter. Like, he tried to put a heart in the sharpshooter. It was ridiculous. So Davey Boy Smith Jr. Got put in the Bulldog choke, which I kind of thought was going to be the end, because we've seen Moxley beat Eddie Kingston with the Bulldog choke. We've seen him win matches with Bulldog choke before, and it seemed like an effective move that would work in the Bloodsport arena. Except Davey Boy Smith actually countered it into a cross arm breaker, and Moxley, of course, would never submit. He wouldn't give up. The two of them got up. They exchanged some strikes. Bulldog Smith moved in a little bit too, and Moxley caught him with a knee to the stomach, and basically that led to the double arm DDT, which knocked Davey Boy Smith Jr. out. So John Moxley wins, and he went on a tirade afterwards. Basically, this match was fantastic. The last two matches on this show were great, and probably combined they were 15 minutes. They're probably about 18, because I could see the main event being maybe 10 minutes, and maybe Cobb and Lawler being probably about 7 or 8, maybe even more than that, depending on maybe my sense of time is off because of there was so much stripped down, but it seemed like these matches went by in a blink. Like, this match could have been. It seemed like a lot happens in a short amount of time because there is no pomp and circumstance. There's no crowd to play to, no music you have to wait for. The commentary is very heavy on what's going on in the ring, very heavy on who the guys are, that kind of stuff. But after the match, Moxley talks about Bloodsport being the best pro wrestling in the world, and that he ain't here to moonlight or to get an extra payday, that he is Bloodsport. And I remember seeing some interviews before this event where Moxley basically said that Bloodsport is what pro wrestling should be. That his view of pro wrestling is Bloodsport. Now, while he chose to do not this kind of stuff on Dynamite, but instead chooses to do the FMW Onita explosion bullshit that he's going to end up doing, I have no idea. Maybe he thinks there's no audience for this, which is, there's a chance because, this Bloodsport stuff is extra masculine. It is super masculine. I think if you were a babyface watching this, you grow a beard. For real. You could put your 4-year-old son in front of this screen and watch this show. He'll have chest hair by the end of it. It's super masculine. He's going to be asking you for a beer by the time this show is over. So I see why people might not like it. But, if we're being honest, Raw Underground did increase that 3rd hour rating. This stuff it has fun. WWE, of course, ruined it because they cut. There's fucking camera cut every 10 seconds, so you can't even see the action of anybody doing anything because they're overproducing it. But this stuff was absolutely very well done. The cameras and everybody, really good job. The cinematography was great. The environment was great. Everything was great. I really didn't have any complaints. This was almost like a perfect show. And and I know some people might have a problem because it's more like faux MMA more than pro wrestling, but it's still good. I don't care what it is, and it features wrestlers, and they were wrestling. They were doing what most of them are actually trained to do, and not doing high flying zabadas and blowing each other up and hitting each other with glass and shit like that. I would rather watch this all day than watch any bullshit where somebody's going to stab somebody in the head with something. Or I could really watch this over guys getting hit with chairs and shit, I don't really need all the TLC stuff. I've seen all that shit before. I really don't need that stuff. This is pretty pure. I like that. That's why I like it how it is. Give it to me every couple of weeks as a palate cleanser for all of the other shit I have to watch. Because I mean, at the very least, this is fun, and it doesn't. And the matches aren't 20 minutes, of boredom and bullshit. And I get to learn some stuff about mixed martial arts, and I get to learn some stuff about different techniques and things like that. And it's fun. It's really fun. The next match, well, there is no next match. That was the main event. But the next fight will be in April. I think it's April the 8th, which is a week or a couple days before WrestleMania. And the main event will be Jon Moxley versus Josh Barnett himself. Josh Barnett will get back into the ring and will fight Jon Moxley. And it seems to make sense because Dickinson was a Bloodsport. He was a Bloodsport regular. He regularly wins too, if I believe correctly. And DBS, Davey Boy Smith Jr., is actually a student of Josh Barnett. So it's natural that he would go after that. Barnett would be next. I heard tell some stories that Davey Boy Smith Jr. was supposed to be joining WWE sometime soon. He likely would be probably going to NXT. And maybe NXT UK. I don't know. I think it'd probably just be NXT because he's in the United States. I don't know. It would be fine, I guess. He has been a journeyman since he left WWE. What was it, 10 years ago? 12 years ago when he left? When did he live? Like 2011? Anyway, he's been a journeyman since. He hasn't really settled down anywhere. I think he did his longest stint in MLW and New Japan. Then when the Hart Dynasty thing in MLW fell apart because of Teddy, and all the stuff in New Japan fell apart, with Lance Archer. I think he was a tag team with Lance Archer. He's older now. He's more grizzled. I think he has settled into a style. I think he knows who he is. But again, you're talking about bringing in a guy who's 35, but NXT just kind of is going to end up being that place. But I can see Davey Boy Smith Jr. in the fight pit with Timothy Thatcher, or really getting it in with Tommaso Ciampa, or something like that. And that's just, mwah. It's a great idea. It's a great plan. Hopefully it happens. And and WWE is all about keeping the families together anyway. They'll likely take care of the Harts and bring Davey Boy Smith Jr. And even if they don't do anything with him, he could probably come in as a trainer or something like that because he has spent so much time training. But he is decent. His charisma is questionable. It's a big question mark. But I like him. I've always liked him. Harry or David Hart Smith or whatever the fuck they call him, Bulldog Smith or whatever. He had like 400 different names. But I always liked him. I thought he was going to join AEW. He talked like he was going to be joining AEW, and then it never happened. But I did hear that he's supposed to be joining NXT, and this was supposedly had taken place while they was doing a documentary for his dad on WWE Icons. They're going to do a British Bulldog episode. So I think that's when they started really talking to him about, coming back. But anyway, Bloodsport was fun. If David Boy Smith Jr. comes back, that's great. Moxley is showing that he's dynamic. His knee strikes actually looked good here. Like in Japan, his knee strikes was absolute trash. In Jacksonville, his knee strikes looked absolute trash. He needs to stop doing knee strikes. They don't look good. But I couldn't see through his knee strikes in this show. So I guess he improved a little bit. Or he actually was probably told, hey, you can make some contact. Like you don't have to make it look like shit. But, he let Davey Boy Smith beat him, bloody him. And it was a fun match, fun show, top to bottom fun show. Let me know what you guys thought. Use the hashtag 3Count commentaries to support the channel. If you want to send money, please do via Cash App. That's always appreciated. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.